One of Kentucky's bloodiest feuds gave birth to what's become one of Kentucky's finest public universities. Frank Button and his widowed mother Phoebe answered the missionary call in mid-1887 to come to the embattled town of Morehead to start a school to bring a light to the mountains, where nearly 24 members of two large families had lost their lives in violence fueled primarily by ignorance and politics. Brother Button wrote that he walked into a gun battle on Main Street on his first day in town, but he and his mother proved equal to the task, and the Morehead Christian Normal School operated from 1887 through 1922. With its private college in a state of financial collapse, the citizens of Morehead turned to the Kentucky General Assembly in 1922 as two new state-funded normal schools were authorized, one in the east and one in the west. Aided by skilled politician Allie Young, supporters of the Morehead location were successful, and the institution reopened in 1923 as a public institution. The original campus, built during the 1920s and 30s, today is a National Historic District. The new public institution grew modestly through the first 2 decades before the onset of World War II depleted its enrollment. Faced with dwindling state funding and tuition revenue, the institution convinced the Navy to locate a training school on the campus, with the government paying most of the college's operating expenses. A Navy installation located 500 miles from the nearest ocean also found success as more than 4,500 shipboard electricians learned their skills while living in college dormitories, eating in the cafeteria, and marching on the football field. Again, Morehead State had survived. The flood of returning veterans and their families and a growing public awareness of the need for higher education swelled the enrollments of Morehead State and hundreds of other public institutions between the late 1940s and late 1960s. In that span, Morehead State evolved from a state teachers' college to a state college to a university. The original mission of teaching teachers expanded into dozens of other academic areas as the curriculum grew to embrace more than 100 degree programs on the associate, bachelor's, and graduate degree levels. It was during this period that MSU began to develop its reputation as one of the best places to prepare for professional school in medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, law, and veterinary science. Combined with its prodigious output of teachers and school administrators, the institution is credited with literally building the middle and upper middle class of East Kentucky. Later, this contribution grew even more with the development of Morehead State's internationally accredited College of Business and the recognition of its world-class programs in communications and visual and performing arts. From its humble beginnings, the institution's close ties to the public schools led to extension classes throughout East Kentucky as teachers and school leaders yearned to improve their skills. When the regional accrediting bodies decided in the late 1960s that all college coursework should carry the same credit regardless of where you take the class, Morehead State seized the opportunity to be Kentucky's pioneer in providing local access to public higher education. High schools, public libraries, and other public buildings were used at first, but the demand for daytime classes resulted in the eventual creation of 5 regional campuses, the most of any public institution in the Commonwealth. Giving access to the place-bound students in East Kentucky also motivated the institution to develop a network of interactive video teaching facilities, and then in 2002 to launch Kentucky's first totally online degree program, the Master of Business Administration. Further evidence of MSU's ongoing commitment to a seamless post-secondary education system includes the location of 3 of our regional campuses at KCTCS institutions and the existence of nearly a dozen articulation agreements for 2+2 degree programs in partnership with KCTCS colleges. MSU also formed the state's first graduate consortium with a private institution, Pikeville College. The emergence of its multimedia communications program was a major factor in the establishment in 1965 of East Kentucky's first public radio station, WMKY Radio in Morehead. Now the flagship of a three-station network stretching from the bluegrass to the mountains, WMKY is a founding member of National Public Radio and has one of its former student staff members, Steve Inskeep, hosting Morning Edition, the most widely heard radio news program in the United States. Other MSU graduates in print and broadcast journalism are fixtures in major media markets in the U.S. The development of professionally accredited programs in art and music was followed by the public recognition and appreciation of traditional art forms related to cultural heritage. The Kentucky Folk Arts Center and the Kentucky Center for Traditional Music are unique to post-secondary education in Kentucky. Through a combination of outreach programs in classical and traditional arts, MSU is touching the lives of thousands of public school students, primarily in East Kentucky. In the last year alone, our traveling theater troupe performed in front of more than 32,000 high school, middle school, and elementary students. Sustaining the legacy of Cora Wilson Stewart, the founder of adult education in the United States, has been an MSU tradition for more than 30 years. Until a few years ago, nearly all of the adult educators in Kentucky were trained at Morehead State, with most receiving the state's only master's degree in adult and higher education. Today, MSU is the only post-secondary institution serving as a direct provider of adult education in 2 communities. The institution has preserved a one-room school building used by Ms. Stewart, an MSU alumnus, in which to teach adults to read and write in the early 1900s. Ms. Stewart was serving as a local school superintendent when she created the Moonlight School concept of teaching adults in the same facilities used by their children. Morehead State also operates an adult education academy for literacy training. Spurred by his interest in deep space research and his awareness of a coming manpower shortage in the aerospace industry, a young science professor convinced the leadership of Morehead State University, 2 members of Congress, and several state legislators that MSU could develop and sustain an instructional program in space science. 6 years and about $25 million later, that vision is being realized each day as work continues on a state-of-the-art instructional and research building, and as students and professors at MSU and colleagues at 5 other institutions prepare a satellite for launch next year as part of a NASA mission. Once in orbit, the satellite will be controlled and monitored from MSU's Space Science Center Mission Control Room. Already operational is a space tracking system committed to deep space research and satellite telemetry.